Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, friends, neighbors, comrades, all citizens of the world, wherever you're going, wherever you've been, and wherever you're at, we welcome you to the Live from the Heartland show here on YouTube. New episodes air every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time with individual interviews posted throughout the following week. I'm your host, Michael James, encouraging you to take the chain from the brain, to get back in the people's game, because it's time to move from the lower level to the higher, from the shallower to the deeper, from the one-sided to the many, and from the abstract to the concrete. So, without further ado, let's get it on. Hello, all you citizens of the world. I'm Michael James. I'm here in Chicago, up in the very blue 49th Ward. And welcome to another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. We are recording this on the 30th. It's a Tuesday of January, our show for the week of February 3rd. And we have some really good guests today. We're going to have Thorne Dreyer down in Austin, Texas. He's got a new book out, and he's the guy from the Bragg blog and from Rag Radio. And we're going to have David Boykin, an acclaimed musician here in Chicago, who is also involved in community politics and police community relations. And at the very end, from out there for the Grammys, we have our music producer, Lynn Orman, and she will give us a few minutes of what she's seeing in sunny California. I want to just say a few things at the beginning of the show. If you're worried about Biden's age, know this. Let's just say that he becomes the president, and for some reason, Kamala Harris has to take over and be the president. Either of them would be a whole lot better for more people than the orange head and the orange face guy and whomever he picks for his VP. On a similar note, for those of us who care and are out there trying to move things in a good direction, just because someone that you meet is shackled to their fears and their doubts, maybe a little grumpy about life and money, doesn't mean that they need to vote a guy out and vote in another guy who will enable fascism. So I think that I'd like to believe that there are more good people in this country than there are those lost in the confusion and misinformation. So our job in the next months is to really talk it up and turn out the vote. With that said, let me go to a couple of good things this week. I noticed I get an email called Only in Your State, and I guess it's in every state, but this one is Illinois. And they had a nice little shout out to Heirloom Books, who we had on the show. Eric was on the show in the last year. Heirloom is a 2-story bookstore, and you can find a lot of interesting stuff. It's cozy, it's welcoming, and it's located at 6239 North Clark. So those of you here who don't know about it yet, you may want to go over there. And speaking of books, my book, Rising Up Angry, Our Fight for a Better World, got a really nice review in Counterpunch by Jonah Raskin. If you want to find the article, is Michael Gaylord James of Rising Up Angry, Still Angry. I also was interviewed for a good amount of time, close to an hour, by Thorne Dreyer out there in Texas, and that was recently on Rag Radio, and you can find that if you go to Rag Radio. Couple more good things. In between watching a lot of football and basketball, I did watch 2 editions of Chicago Stories on WTTW, Chicago's public broadcasting system. And they were The Candy Capital, a film about how candy making came to Chicago, how it expanded and grew, how it disappeared, and how it's coming back with these heirloom small candy confectionery joints. And I also saw another one on reversing the flow of the Chicago River. The visuals in both of these are great. The information is great, and I encourage everybody to check them out. Once again, Candy Capital and Reversing the Chicago River. Another good thing is the mayor, with some pressure from progressives in the city council, has extended the migrant stay here in Chicago. A lot of people were looking forward to being forced out of the shelter they were in. It's been very cold. The money is short. So that's good. We still have a lot of work to do on that front. And on that note, labor unions here in Chicago, including the Chicago Teachers Union, Service Employees International Union, and the United Auto Workers, have all called for a ceasefire in Gaza. The ongoing situation in Gaza is terrible. Ukraine is not much better. There's all kind of stuff going on in other places. Stay tuned, do what you can, and let's get on with our guests. So we're going to take a short musical break, and we'll be back with our first guest for today. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland. I'm Michael James, and we're going to bring on our first guest now, the one and only David Boykin. And I know David through his involvement in a series of jazz sets that the late William Perry put on at the No Exit Cafe back when the No Exit was part of the Heartland Cafe's little mini empire. And it was a wonderful Sunday afternoon event that had a lot of musicians. And one of them was David Boykin. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about David. He's a pretty interesting and dynamic artist, a composer, a band leader. He's a multi-reed guy, tenor saxophone, soprano sax, etc. I don't know about Stritch and Manzella. He even does a little drumming. And he is the founder of Sonic Healing Ministries. And he is a pretty interesting guy, and like a lot of other musicians, he has a political side. And we remember here in Chicago, Jerry Butler, who got political and was in the Water Reclamation District. He was elected officer. And I'm calling to everyone's attention a recent article I saw about Nashville is in Tennessee, which is a really kind of right-wing red state these days. But there is a whole breed of young country singers who are challenging that. So we like the mixture of politics and music. We're going to start with David talking about some politics. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It looks like you're in Havana, but I think you're in Grand Crossing. Good morning, David.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, I'm in Greater Grand Crossing. That's where I'm at.
And tell people who are watching or listening out of Chicago where that is at. Even Chicago people.
Yeah, Greater Grand Crossing on the south side of Chicago. I'm on 75th and near 75th and King Drive, south side. You may know Lim's Barbecue, or you may know Soul Vegetarian Restaurant, or you may know Brown Sugar Bakery. Yeah, that's where
Brown Sugar Bakery got a big play in that movie that I talked about at the outset of this show, Chicago Candy. It's a documentary about the rise and fall of the candy industry, and Brown Sugar was one of in the finale of all these new little shops that are cranking it out.
Yeah.
When I wrote to you and got a hold of you, I wanted to talk about music, get a little of your history, and I still want to do that. But what you wanted to talk about was the Community Commission of Police Accountability. And when I was looking over the material, I know about the district councils. Tell us about how they're related, the two of them.
Yeah, well, it's the Community Commission of Public Safety and Accountability. And it's like a 7-member body. And the initial body was appointed by the mayor. Going forward, though, they'll be elected. And they are a new civic body to oversee police policy and procedure and other things related to public safety. And the sort of eyes and ears of the commission in the police districts is the district councils. Now, these are 22 smaller bodies of just 3 people in each police district that are elected. Now, these people are elected by the residents in the police district. And there's 3 in each, making a total of 66. And I ran for one of those positions and was elected to be a representative in my district, in the 6th district.
Oh, so you are a member of the district council for the 6th district.
Right.
And you are running for re-election.
We just, it's brand new. We were elected last year. During the last election, that's when we were elected. When Brandon Johnson came in on that same election, that's when we were elected. We were inaugurated in May, so we're in our first year. And we're up for re-election every 4 years. Yeah.
Oh, so you're on for a while. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, we had some people on the show up here in the 24th district, which would be Veronica Areola, who's the
Oh, yeah.
chair, and then Marilyn Pagan Banks and Ed Vet Jones, although I think he is not going to stay on. I'm not sure what the procedure is. Why don't you talk a little bit about the district councils and the Commission on Police Accountability? Tell us what you're observing, how you think it's going, and what the potential is.
Potential is great as many things. The potential is far greater than how you may perceive things to be going practically on a day-to-day kind of basis. It was potential that brought me to this. As you said, I'm a musician. I was playing music and teaching music, and then this kind of came across my radar. I don't know if I saw a Facebook post or some kind of social media post or something, because people, fighting, long and hard for this ordinance, the ECPS ordinance, Empowering Communities for Public Safety, that established it. And then they started organizing to have people to run for these positions, that they had created. CARPA, the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, they were hosting a series of trainings and meetings about the district councils and about the commission. And I saw some advertisement for it, and I was like, oh, let me just see what that is. And I started attending these online Zoom meetings. And this is like, I think during the end of the pandemic, I'm going to these Zoom meetings. And they're talking about it, and I'm finding out more about it. And then they would do like a series of like 12 meetings. And then so towards the end, they started asking people, oh, okay, now who is it that would like to run for this? And somebody answered back, and they kind of echoed my sentiments. They were like, this is great, but and I think this is really important, work. But I'm not sure if I want to be sitting up in a room with the police, and I just don't want to be that close to the police like that. And I felt totally the same way. I didn't want to. I thought, this is I support this work, but I'm not the one to do it. But then I came to find out that there was no one slated to run in my district, and so yeah, I decided to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and up here in the 24th, there was competition that were not as progressive as the people we elected.
Yeah.
That's good. So how many people are now on your council in the 6th district? Do you have 3 or just you?
We do have 3. We did manage to get 3. First, it was just 2. There was myself and Eric Russell. And then Aisha Humphreys joined as a write-in candidate. So we do have 3. However, as just announced yesterday, Eric Russell is resigning at the end of this year. So after May, he's going to be resigning, and we will be seeking someone to replace him in that role.
How will that be selected? Will there be an election or an appointment?
I have to get all the details about that. I've got a little bit of information about that. People will apply, and I think it'll be a selection. I think myself and the other district counselor, Aisha, I think we will recommend to the commission, and the commission will send them along to the mayor, maybe 2 or 3 people, and the mayor will approve or disapprove them, and send them back to us to find somebody else, or he'll approve them and they'll be appointed. I think that's how the process will go.
Well, we're going to have to do it up here. I should know too. We have the same with someone resigning. These councils, it's been a long struggle for community control of police. I remember back in my own experience in Jobs or Income Now, or Joint Community Union, as it came to be known, which was organizing in Uptown, mainly with Southern whites in the 60s, late 60s. We actually tried to do what the Panthers did and follow the police when they were arresting someone or hassling them or whatever. And it didn't go real well. Now, the Panthers did it out in Oakland. And I think throughout the country, people have been trying to figure out how there's more community say in the behavior of the police. But the district councils here are just advisory, right? Or just discussion. There's not a lot of power involved yet.
No, it's not. It's not a lot of power. The biggest power that the councils have is in nominating the commission. As I said, the original commission was appointed. Now those people, their terms are up, and there needs to be new commissioners. The new commissioners, where the new commissioners come from, are people that are nominated by the district councils. The application has been open, I think, for about a week or so. They just opened the application recently for people to apply to become commissioners. And once they apply, it's the district councils who will decide what applications that go forward and are sent to the mayor to be confirmed. And the power with the commission, the real power with the commission, is that they do things like they appointed the superintendent. The superintendent Snelling, he had to come through the commission approved him. And they sent him and 3 other applicants to the mayor, and the mayor chose Snelling. So that's the biggest power that I see, like, in the councils, is that they select the commissioners.
Are you going to run? Are you one of the people going to run for the Community Commission of Police Accountability?
No, I'm not. You can't. Well, you can't.
If you're on a district council, you can't run for that leadership.
Right. You can't do that. Yeah. There's different qualifications. But I encourage people to apply, to look at that and to apply. And also there's 2 of the people on the commission have to be between the ages of 18 and 24. So young people, especially, please, look into that and apply.
I don't have any kids that are that young anymore, but I definitely saying, hey,
grandkids, maybe.
Okay, well, that's some good information. Is there anything else you want to add about? Well, let me ask you particularly. We have an arbitration situation with the fraternity, Fraternal Order of the Police, and the city council, et cetera. The city council did not want the police to be able to meet if they have some egregious charge, to meet behind closed doors. So the arbitration is broke down. Do you have anything you want to share on that?
No, I mean, I just said I stand with, I stand against that, idea of them, meeting behind closed doors, to have their cases adjudicated by a arbitrator, as opposed to it going to the police board, and the records being open for everyone to see.
I remember really enjoying you when you came to the No Exit, and we haven't seen each other much. We talked a couple times. But how did you get involved playing music?
I didn't start playing music till I was like 21 years old, and I was in college studying economics. I was at Florida A&M. I was studying economics, and my roommate came back at the end of after the summer break. We came back, and he had all these jazz records, and he would play them 24 hours a day. Prior to that, we listened to hip hop. We listened to reggae, because we were in Florida. We listened to reggae and hip hop. Those are the most things that we listened to. But now he was playing this jazz music like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Gerald and Betty Carter and Sonny Stitt, John Cody. He's playing stuff like this like all the time. And I growing up, that music wasn't played like my family, they didn't listen to jazz music. So I hadn't really, listened to it or heard it that much. But he's playing it all the time, and then it was just a moment. It was one moment. One day I just heard it. I was listening and I heard it, and something in my brain just sort of clicked, and I had a knowing, like a sense, a knowing that I've never known anything. I had never known anything that's certain before, and I don't think I've known that certain since. I started trying to acquire an instrument. I started asking around. There was somebody on the campus I had made a deal to buy the saxophone from. But within a month or so, he he changed his mind. He sold it to somebody else. They had more money up front or something. He sold it. But then, and so I went home at the end of that semester in the fall, and I didn't return in the spring. I stayed home to work and to make some money. And I was working this job at the Essex Inn. I was working at the Essex Inn, like night. I was doing night auditor work at the Essex Inn, and there was a pool attendant who was a fireman who worked part time there at the Essex doing attending. He was a lifeguard at the pool. Tony Williams, I think his name was actually Tony Williams. And we became friends, and I was hanging out. I went to his house. He invited me to his house. I went to his house, and he takes me in the basement, and he has a recording studio in his basement. And I didn't, unbeknownst to me, he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to want to be a singer." And he had this recording studio with, like, all this equipment and stuff, and a booth. And in the booth, there's a piano, and on the piano bench, there's a clarinet. And I told him, that I wanted to play, saxophone, and he gave me the clarinet. And now, that started it all.
Well, what are the different groups you've had, and what do you got going right now?
Yeah, I mean, I started out with a trio, and then it grew. David Boykin Trio grew to a bigger group, Expanse. And mostly now I operate like Expanse is like a pretty much a quartet. Myself, Jim Baker, who I met at the Velvet Lounge back then, usually plays piano. Alex Wing on bass, and Isaiah Spencer on drums. And we're playing, like, original compositions. And then other groups I have 10, 12 piece, like 4 singers. And that group came about, I guess, that group came about like around 2015. I had wrote an opera, like a jazz hip hop like opera, that was like talking about, like, it was a story of like two activists in the movement, like in the Black Lives Matter type movement. It was dealing with their story. So the music there is kind of like a blend of jazz and like hip hop and soul, R&B. And then a smaller group, a Beku, where I sing a lot and use like samplers and drum machines as opposed to live drummer and keyboards. But those are my main groups, and would expand. Sometimes I rap, and then I have another thing where I just rap and play like samplers, Dark Mary and Dr. Belson.
Can you, in a couple of words, tell the people who don't know what your music is, or what kind of music, or how do you describe it?
No, I can't.
Okay, that's
It's different for each group. Like if you said Expanse, you said like, well, what's the David Boykin Expanse like? I would say that's kind of like, like post John Coltrane, kind of like jazz. You know what I mean? It's just jazz music that's kind of like, post Coltrane. If you said like what's the Beku like, I would say, oh, that's kind of like, it's kind of like neo soul, but it's kind of like electronic-y. You know what I mean?
Well, but when this airs, you will have played at a place called the Whistler on Milwaukee Avenue, and tell us a little bit about that scene. You were there. It'll be the 31st. This show doesn't come on until
Okay.
the weekend. But tell us about the Whistler and the jazz scene in general, real quick.
Oh, well, the Whistler's a great bar that features live music. And it's great that they feature live music. Every Wednesday, they have the series Relax Attack, and it features like an experiment. Especially they feature experimental sort of like jazz artists who really trying to like push the boundaries and stuff. And I played on it for a number of years with different groups, and I'm coming back this year to play with my group of Beku. Well, I'll be playing soprano saxophone and singing and playing the samplers. And Adam Zanolini, he'll be playing the bass, and Paige Brown will be playing the keyboards.
Well, I wish that was after the show airs, but you do have another one coming up, and I believe that's you and Juarez Hawkins, Sunday, February 10th, 7 p.m. at Compound Yellow, which is at 244 Lake Street in Oak Park.
Right. Yeah, that show is I'm looking forward to that show a lot. That's an interesting experiment that I'm trying to do. A long time I met Juarez quite some time ago, and I was doing a series of like improvised duets where I would improvise with different artists in different genres. So I was improvising with some painters. I would do a duet with a painter. I would do a duet with with writers who would write like on overhead projector, like live, like while I'm playing, improvise with like dancers. And so I'm revisiting something along that theme, but kind of based on this quote by Eric Dolphy, where he talks about music and sound, and the ephemeralness of it, how like once you play music, it's in the air and then it's gone. And I thought about that in terms of the duet and a painter, and how when a painter paints or a sculptor sculpts, they leave this like physical like object there. Uh, and so then I just came across what's that? That magic water paper that they use for like learning calligraphy. So you make a mark on that, and it disappears. So Juarez is going to be improvising with me at the same time, but she'll be using that medium. So she'll be painting, on this watercolor paper, and what she makes as my notes will also disappear.
Well, David Boykin, we're out of time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. How do people get a hold of you? Is there any information you want to give out?
Just Google David Boykin, davidboykin.com. Go to the City of Chicago websites, find out about the district councils. Yeah, just go to City of Chicago.
I like you mix the politics and the music.
Yeah, hey, we got it.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot, David Boykin, and everybody.
Right.
Soon we're going to take a little musical break with some of David's music, and we'll be right back with our next guest, Thorne Dreyer, out of Austin, Texas. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of February 3rd in the year 2024. I'm Michael James. Once again, I'm up here in Chicago's 49th Ward, and we're going all the way to Austin, Texas now, because we're going to talk with my friend, the one and only Thorne Dreyer. We go way back. We both have a long history in SDS, Students for Democratic Society. Thorne has gone on to have a rich history in journalism, broadcasting, and progressive politics. And I like to interview people who've been around a while, been organizers, activists, so that we have some, recording of people who have worked to change the world. He wants to talk more particularly about a wonderful new book out, and we're going to focus on that, but we'll hit on a lot of other things. His new book's called Making Waves, and it is a collection of interviews from his show, Rag Radio. Good morning to you. Good afternoon, whatever time it is. How are you, Thorne?
I'm just fine, Brother James. How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay.
I'm good.
Yesterday, we canceled the show, the recording, because the heat was out. It's still out, but we're in a warm, toasty bedroom.
Okay, cool.
So tell us
I'm
a
glad
little
you're
bit
toasty.
about.
I'm glad you're toasty.
I like to be toasty. So, Thorne, tell us a little bit about not only let's start with Rag Radio, and then we'll get to the book off of that.
Okay. Well, to start with Rag Radio, I have to say a little bit about the Rag. The Rag, of course, was an underground newspaper we published starting in 1967, and it lasted 11 years. And am I getting that right, or was it 66? I have lost a lot of brain cells, but and so it was a very important. It was kind of it followed. It set a tone. It was one of the first underground newspapers to kind of combine politics and culture, and it was a pretty big deal. and it lasted longer than most underground newspapers, and became kind of a legend around here. So then the rag lasted 11 years, and then we decided to kind of reinvent it. In 2005, we had a reunion, and then we had another one about 10 years later. And dozens of people came from all over the place, including other parts of the world, to join us in the reunion. And we had all kinds of wonderful stuff going on. But it set in motion some new political action, and it got us all going. And one thing you got to understand is that there's a community in Austin that continues. It doesn't go away. So there were a lot of people who worked on the rag who are still involved in what we're doing. So we started a thing called the Rag Blog, and which for a while was a really pretty hot commodity. We still are publishing it. And we started Rag Radio, and we've done about 500 shows, over 500 shows now. We do it on a community radio station, KOOP, a cooperatively run radio station, which we believe is the only one in the country like that. And it's also rebroadcast on a couple of other stations. So it's cool. We have great guests. We've had a wonderful time with the show, and we're keeping going. No end in sight.
No, you are. I actually had the honor of being on your show way back 2013 when I was following my kids' band, then Twin Peaks, and was on your show for a little bit. And then you most recently had me on again. You've been on this show, but it's been a long time.
Right.
I like to talk about not only my show, your show, but Klonsky has a show. So we kind of like pushing progressive radio, and in our case, we go YouTube and TV, etc.
We have all our podcasts up at the Internet Archive.
It's very rich. You have an awful lot of stuff, and I did some writing for you for a while. I did 40-something pieces, and I really appreciate that you gave me that opportunity. I got hung up in 1984, but there's more to come. Speaking of more to come, you got this book, and it's really love the book. Not only do I love the layout of the book, the look of the book, the feel. There's a lot of books out there that just don't feel right, just to touch them and look at them. This is nice. Tell us about this book and how you came to have it published at the Briscoe Center in Texas.
Okay, well, of course, I've done all these shows and I had all this material, and I gave the Briscoe Center a lot of the shows. So they've got a lot of them. I've got a collection basically of shows at the Briscoe Center. And I got to talking to Don Carlton, who's the editor, is the general manager of the director, thank you, of the Briscoe Center, which is the Briscoe Center for American History at the University of Texas. And so we decided to do this book, and it's distributed by UT Press, and I've had a great time doing it. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And it's a collection of interviews that I have done on Rag Radio, which includes people that know you folks know, like Tom Hayden and Bernadine and Bill, and a lot of other movement people, but also it includes writers and artists and musicians and that kind of thing. So it's the book has some of the Dan Rather and Robin Rather, his daughter. It's their first father-daughter interview, and it's wonderful because we talked to Dan Rather about when he called the Houston Astros baseball, the Double-A Houston Astros baseball team. He was an announcer for it, and they did. They didn't travel with the team. They had somebody at the game with a wire, and they were just typing in and telling them what happened. And so hit a single to right field. And so Rather had to say, and he he slams one through the hole. And so it was funny. I asked him if anybody ever, messed up or whatever. And he said, well, sometimes one of the guys would be one of the sound effect guys, or the other guy would maybe had some adult beverages. And so it was, so we talk about a lot of stuff with people that you wouldn't expect to talk about. I talked to Tom Hayden about baseball too, because he had played baseball a lot. So
Uh,
anyway, and
Thorne,
you've played a lot of sports. You're a sportsman.
I did play football in college. We weren't a powerhouse, and I wasn't the best player, but I did get to play. And I do follow a lot of sports. I like sports. I think there's uh, you know, good sports has a lot to do with cooperation and teamwork and working together. Let me ask you, Thorne. This is full of great interviews, and some of the other people in it are Bernie Sanders, Jim Hightower, and Kinky Friedman. I was wondering if you have a favorite or in the book. Do you have a favorite one or two or three interviews?
Well, it's hard to say. I loved the one with Dan Rather and his daughter Robin. It was great. She's a major environmentalist, and so we talked about the environment. They're a little different in their approach to things, but Dan Rather is pretty progressive, and so that was one of my favorites. Uh, I had a great interview with Paul Krasner. Actually, it was two parts that I put together into one interview, and we talked a lot about early Mad Magazine and all kinds of stuff like that. And Krasner's a trip, and in fact, I dedicated the book to several people who are in the book who no longer are with us, and that included Paul Krasner and Tom Hayden, incidentally.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful interview with Bill Kirchen, the musician, and David Amram, you may know, and Bernie Sanders was great. It was fun to interview him. He was on the floor of the Congress, and when he talked to us, and
Neat.
and that was right before he was coming to Austin to do a town hall, and it was right before he announced that he was going to run. And I asked him on the show. I said, "Okay, can you break it now? Can you tell us that you're going to run for president?" And he said, "No." He said, "We'll find out soon enough." Something like that. So, but Bernie Sanders was great to talk to. I talked to Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz,
Oh yeah, she's been a guest on this show too. I love her.
she's great. She's terrific. So, it just Jim Hightower is always a hoot. I don't know if people know Jim Hightower, but he was the former agriculture commissioner of Texas, but he's been a major force in a lot of progressive stuff over the years.
Well, let me ask you just a brief little thing. What's the difference between the Briscoe Center publishing your book and the University of Texas who distributes it?
The
Is it like
Briscoe Center, the Briscoe Center is a major. Uh, um, I mean, they have major collections. A lot of them left. A lot of them progressive. People wouldn't be surprised. People would be surprised to find that out. And so, the UT Press is a massive operation. They publish a lot more books, but they did all kinds of books. Everything that the Briscoe Center does has something to do with Texas history, and it's it's so that's the main difference. The Briscoe Center is a more hands-on operation. We had a great time doing it.
is it like an
UT
imprint
Press,
at the University of Texas?
huh?
Is it like an imprint or another little
Yeah,
University of Texas?
it's a division. It's a division, And our book, by the way, won was a selection of the Texas Book Festival. Our friend Alice Embry also wrote a memoir, which was selected for the Texas Book Festival. So we had a double dipper, and
Nice.
we did a big event outside at the Capitol when they had the Texas Book Festival. Alice and I, and it was great, full house, great crowd, had a lot of fun. So,
Well, I
but
want to move a little bit toward the you as a progressive, and Texas in the news. I just saw today, the governor of Texas, kind of a right wing guy. He is challenging Biden over the barbed wire. We recently had a segment on the show, David Romo, on the history of barbed wire on the border, which was pretty interesting.
yeah.
But Texas, a lot of people think of it as right wing. I go to El Paso pretty regularly for basketball in the barrio. I've been hearing for 20 years how Texas is moving blue. I'm wondering, I know you, and I know I've known other people in Austin. Austin is definitely not a red kind of a place, even though the
Neither is
congressional,
Houston.
yeah, the
Houston is also
pretty
very
progressive.
progressive.
Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the progressives in Texas. You even might want to talk about your own mom and dad in Houston, which because
Oh, yeah.
I thought your introduction was really wonderful, and you included some family history. Share that with us.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my parents were. My mother was a major Houston artist, Margaret Webb Dreyer, and my father was a newspaper man and a creative writer, and so they made quite a team. And so basically, I was born to a newspaper man and a abstract expressionist. And so it was quite a scene. They had an art gallery, and I hung out at the art gallery a lot when I was a kid. And they took me down to the press club and all this kind of stuff. They were very important figures in Houston, and they also uh, were targets of the Ku Klux Klan, as was Space City, the newspaper that I also published in or helped publish in Houston. And the Klan shot up the art gallery. Uh, they shot a bullet into a mosaic wall, an interior mosaic wall, and my mother just put a circle around it and didn't repair it because she considered it a badge of honor. And so the Klan got all riled up because we invited Abby Hoffman to come to speak in Houston and speak at Herman Park and whatever. And so that's when they started. They really got on their high horse. But I mean, they bombed the Pacifica radio station off the air twice. So, and it was the only radio station in the history of this country that's ever been bombed off the air even once.
Wow.
But so my parents were great people, and they inspired me, and I think a lot of what I became. I mean, they were very active. My mother, especially, was extremely active against the war in Vietnam, and for civil rights, and was just out there in the community. And in addition to when she died way too young, there was a posthumous show of her work at the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston, and then St. Thomas University had a retrospective of her work. So she was highly honored. She was an extremely revered, as Pete Gershon in his book about contemporary art, he called her the much beloved Margaret Webb Dreyer. So they gave that, and much of what got me started and got me on my path was being around the gallery and knowing all the people, and it got me started not only into progressive politics, but ultimately into doing interviews, because so many of the people, there were a lot of the people I interviewed that I had already known over the years. I knew Dan Rather from when I was a little kid, so it was great. Houston is a great city. Houston's a very cool city, I think, and and there's not, one of the things about Texas is that it's divided up between rural and urban, and urban Texas is and it's just that the Republicans have been so good at building and consolidating power, and so it doesn't really reflect what Texas is, I don't think.
Well,
I don't think.
I hope Texas will flip a little bit. Let's one of the things you talked about Houston, which not only had all the people who are already in Houston, but got a whole lot of people who had to move out of Louisiana, after the flood down there. And
Houston opened its arms.
They did. And I'm hoping Chicago will continue to open its arms to all the immigrants that we're getting. But speaking of Texas, but I did notice that the mayor of Dallas, who was an African American, was a Democrat. He flipped and he went Republican. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but
I don't really know much about that. I don't know what brought that about. And I don't know how the people in Dallas have responded to that. So I really don't, I can't help much, but I think it's pretty odd. The only large Texas city with a Republican leadership was Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So
Texas has always been an inspiration to me in a way. I mean, for a while I was into calling everyone from Texas jive Texas turkeys, which is an expression I heard up in Colorado one time. but some of the best people I've known are out of Texas or in Texas, and I know people are working for good. Do you have any sense of the direction and where things are going politically? I mean, even in Austin, talk a little bit about Austin, which a lot of people know because of South by Southwest, um, or they may know about paintings of armadillos leaping over highways. Like at the Vulcan Gas Company with Shiva's headband. It's always been
Right.
kind of a neat place. Talk a little bit more about Austin and your beloved state of Texas.
Sadly, so much of the old Austin is being torn down and or is all the old institutions, the places like Threadgill's and that we all, I mean, that up until a couple of years ago, we would all, when people would come to town, we'd take them there, and Threadgill's had all of the old, it had famous pianos and all this posters, because there was a great poster tradition in Austin. And of course, Gilbert Shelton, the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, started in Austin, started at the Rag. And so it's losing a lot of that. It's losing a lot of that. I mean, it's become a tech city in a lot of ways. And so with the tech city comes the kind of that techie libertarian thing. But it's still a lefty city. And I like it because there's just so much interesting energy here.
Am I correct that the congressional districts are divided in such a way that even though Austin, a large growing city with a progressive lean, doesn't have a congressional representative that's blue?
Well, it's like they just created these big slices or these long corridors, I should say. And so, what it is, you should have more representatives than you have. Because the Republicans are so good, like I said before, at consolidating power, and so it's sad, and I don't know. I mean, Texas really was moving blue. I mean, purple.
Right.
We all started to say, well, it's a purple state, and now it's the governor has become a real Trumpite. And so much of Texas now, and it's because of the legislature. It's because of the right-wing legislature.
Well, we clearly have our work to do, and I know you're going to be at it, and I will be too. We got an election in November. How about we only have a minute left, Thorne. I know that you deserve more time, and I'm inviting you back anytime you want to come on. But why don't you tell a little bit about how people can talk a little bit about your book, your show, and how people can get a hold of you.
Okay. The Rag Radio is broadcast on KOOP 91.7 FM in Austin, but it's also streamed at koop.org. So anybody can listen to it. Also, you can go to the Internet Archive and search Rag Radio, and you can find all of our old shows. You can get the book by either going to the Briscoe Center for American History at the University of Texas, or just go to the University of Texas Press. You can buy it either way, and you can also buy it through Amazon or something. But it's out there and about there. But I would go straight to the Briscoe Center. We're thrilled with how well the book is done. You never get rich off books.
Let me ask you, Thorne, what's your T-shirt say?
Oh, it says Hunter Thompson, Fear and Loathing. It's actually the cover of the book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a savage journey to the heart of the American dream.
Well, I've got my Rag Radio shirt on,
and that's great. There aren't very many of those left, I don't think. Feed your head.
You're a wonderful guy, and I'm really glad that we're friends, that we can support each other's endeavors, because we're in it for the long haul. And
that's right.
We've got to keep taking care of ourselves and sharing that vibe with others, so that we have plenty of troops out there to make the world a better place.
Okay. And I love what you're doing up there. Thank you very much for having me.
And everybody else, we're going to bring in our music producer, if we can find her in California. So we'll be right back with another little blurb of music from David Boykin, who was our first guest. Well, everybody out there, thanks for tuning into the Live from the Heartland show. And I got one little finale. Our music producer, Lynn Orman, is out there in California for the Grammys. She's going to report on it next week, but she's going to tell us briefly about a 30-second interview or recording that she just made. Go for it, Lynn.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here for the 66 Grammy Awards. I haven't been here all 66 years, but it's going to be amazing. We've got a lot of Chicago nominees, including, of course, John Primer, and in the poetry category, J.I.V. So I just encourage everybody to go to live.grammy.com. You can watch the premiere ceremony, which will focus on roots and folk and jazz and blues and poetry and spoken word. So that starts early in the day before the broadcast at, I think, Chicago time at noon. Follow me on Facebook, Lynn Orman, and I'll get you all that info. But yesterday, I had the great honor of sitting with one of our favorite guests, Michael McCarty, who, as you know, a great friend of the Heartland Cafe and a great friend of our radio show and an activist. And Michael told me all about being able to go back into the prisons to be able to do storytelling. And I love him. We're looking forward to having him on as a guest very soon.
Thanks, Lynn. And we're going to have you back next week. And so we're going to do a little thing on Michael McCarty going out. But before we do that, I'm going to say thank you to everybody who made the show possible. But before I even do that, I want to say next week we've got the incomparable Tom Clark talking about Chicago and beyond. We've got Nathan Smith of Roman Susan Gallery about Loyola buying the building that the gallery is in. And we'll have a little bit of music. Thank you to David Boykin. Thank you to Thorne Dreyer. And of course, Lynn Orman. Continue to do good in the world, everybody, because the world needs all the good that you do. And here's Michael McCarty, former Black Panther, storyteller, poet, giving us a little rap. See you next week.
Greetings and salutations, and how to heaven are you? Michael D. from beautiful Inglewood, California, giving a shout out to the Heartland Cafe peoples. Hey, memories, all power to the people.
Are you doing the best you can? Over the mountain.
We want to thank you for watching the Live from the Heartland show. New episodes air every Friday beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Episodes air each following Thursday on CAN TV, 9 p.m. in Sweet Home Chicago on Channel 21 or streaming everywhere else at cantv.org. Audio episodes go live on WLUW each Saturday, 9 a.m. on the left end of your dial at 88.7 FM or streaming everywhere worldwide at WLUW.org. They're available on Apple and Spotify podcasts by looking up Live from the Heartland on either platform, and are also broadcast on Lumpen Radio each Friday at 9 a.m. on 105.5 FM and streaming at lumpenradio.com. I'm Michael James, and I'm glad to have been your host. Until next time, remember, do good in the world because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out.
Gone to limb. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing